July 2, 1965. Dearest Suzie, how are you and the boys getting along? Of course, we haven't gotten any mail in the last 3 days, so I haven't heard from you. We are still fighting the war as hard as ever. Up at 5 o'clock and finished about dark. Still no orders. Lit got his the other day. He is going to Fort Hood, Texas. We had a little excitement here yesterday morning that I'm sure you have heard about by now. The VC got right on the runway up here and bombed some of our planes. We didn't know anything about it, however, until we went out to work. It is so hot up here that you would never believe it. I can hardly wait to get back to Vinh Long. It is the rainy season there, so it should be cooler. It is so hot here that it is even miserable trying to sleep at night. We should be getting back to Vinh Long on the 7th. Do you know yet when you will be going back to Florida? When are you going to send me some slides? If you wait too much longer, you might as well forget about it. Well, news is short, so I will close for now. I love you and miss you all. It won't be long now. All my love, Bill. What I'm about to present to you is something that I wrote. There's not much to say about it, except that it is true. I hope you enjoy. Among the rolling clay hills of middle Georgia sits a tiny town. Once a thriving railroad community, now nothing more than an intersection of major country roads. Those born here only leave if they go to the military or prison. The liquor stores are closed on Sundays, and the townsfolk still know how to keep to their side of the railroad tracks when the sun goes down. They all, however, manage to present a polite smile and an accompanying nod when they pass each other down the aisles at the Pig. The talk of the town usually consists of pride for the newly opened McDonald's, family drama, most everyone was kin, or optimism towards the high school's football team that just might bring the county pride once again like they had back in '93. On the outskirts of this small town sits an old trailer which slid off its brick foundation years ago and is held together by nothing more than cheap wood and promises that things will get fixed in time, when money isn't so tight. Once the trailer was home to a tiny old man named Bill and his cute old wife named Sue. Bill was raised near the town and, like an elephant, had always insisted on moving back home to die, managing to do so only after the death of his mother and the subsequent purchase of her trailer. It was the last stop for the couple and contained all the contents that remained from their 55-year marriage, 4 boys, and many moves. Atop the TV stand in the den sat Bill's letter of appreciation from the president, a poster of a helicopter, and an intricately constructed model ship that he built once when his hands didn't seem to shake so much. The interior was carefully maintained by Sue, who vigilantly swept the perimeter for any streaky windows, crooked picture frames, or runaway dust bunnies. During the day, Sue often ventured into town, sometimes going to the flea market, hunting for treasures to surprise one of her many grandchildren with. Other times, she'd work at the hair salon and earn pennies on the dollar, or the occasional dye job to help conceal her age, by sweeping up hair and answering phones. On the way home, she was sure to stop at the gas station on the corner to stock up on cigarettes and scratch-offs. Bill typically split his time between watching TV in his small bedroom, playing slots on his computer in his even smaller office, or smoking some cigarettes on their front porch. He was no millionaire, but was inexhaustibly optimistic that the next lottery ticket would finally give him the title. He and Sue would have to make do with Social Security until then. At night, Sue stayed up late, watching Lifetime movies, and often spoiled herself with something sweet. She slept lightly, but often dreamt that she was either a little girl back in New Jersey with her brothers and sisters, or a young woman with 4 boys running around creating mayhem again. Bill would stay up late as he could to avoid sleep, but would inevitably fall prey to exhaustion. He typically had bad dreams, filled with abstract visions of red and green. The only people back in town who looked like the faces he would see in his nightmares ran the nail salon and said things like ain't and y'all through thick foreign accents. One summer, Bill and Sue's boys offered to bring their wives and kids to Georgia and celebrate the 4th of July as one big family. Only 3 of the 4 came, which surprised no one. Sue was especially happy to see 5 of her grandkids, all in one place, which had become increasingly rare since they left Florida. Though the many pillows and blankets occupying every conceivable soft surface seemed to make the trailer shrink in size, no one dared ask to join Popi in his bedroom. It was his, and everyone knew better than to bother him about it. The grandkids figured it might have been because it was closest to the front door and no one wanted to get between Bill and his hourly smokes. On the morning of Independence Day, the grandkids, dressed in their red, white, and blue Old Navy shirts, and the brothers began preparing the grill that was certain to operate until nightfall, sucking down beers as they went along. Bill mainly kept to his room, watching TV, looking forward to dinner, and enjoying his rest. The presence of his family was appreciated but quickly tired him. Sue and the wives made sure the kids were briefed on the necessity for safety during the holidays' festivities.
"You know what we should do?"
soloed a voice from the chorus of grandkids.
"We should try to plan a special celebration for Popi with the fireworks. He was a soldier and fought for our independence."
The rest of the choir fell in with odes of agreement. The kids spent the day coordinating who would launch what and when they would do it. All the while, Bill found time to fall asleep, at least until dusk turned to dark, and he was awoken by a loud familiar boom coming from just outside his window. "Dad, come on, we've been waiting for you," ordered one son from the hallway. He reluctantly shuffled outside to the thump of mortars jumping from their tubes and an army of crickets. Still disoriented from the nap, he almost believed he was back in the war. "What is that smell? Sulfur?" Bill thought to himself. "I've smelled that before, a long time ago. And the smoke hanging in the air, I can't see. Am I sure this isn't Nom?" Silhouettes danced in the night around him, illuminated by nothing more than the moon and stars. High-pitched laughter zigzagged through the air, and in his isolation, Bill could have sworn that it wasn't laughter at all, but instead the familiar wailing of a child in pain, alone in the dark. Laughter and tears had always sounded so similar anyway. His eyes anxiously jumped around the porch, landing on the BB gun the grandkids had been using earlier. "It's there if I need it," he thought. "I pray I won't."
"All right,"
a voice squeaked from the blackness.
"it's time to light off the big one."
A lighter flicked in the distance, and a spark frolicked down the fuse, disappearing only for a moment. There was an explosion, followed by another in the sky, which caused a bright light and loud crackle. The large family cheered while Bill stood on the porch, unable to move. His feet anchored to the decaying plywood. His ears rang, and he tried his best to stay upright. His breathing became deep and labored, worsened by another explosion.
"Popi!"
called one of the grandkids.
"Wasn't that cool?"
He cleared his throat, forcing out his words. "Yep, that was a big one," he shouted back. His sons yelled to each other, "Hey, watch this!" and started showing off everything else they brought for the occasion. Bill's head started spinning as the pops and bangs increased until they became a cacophony of white noise emanating from just beyond the safety of the porch. He felt fear again, a fear he hadn't genuinely felt in years. He contemplated clutching the gun to help hold himself up, and maybe... Suddenly, Bill heard gunshots in the distance and was instantly prepared to abandon his post on the porch and run for the security of his bedroom. His days of grabbing the helpless and carrying them to safety were long gone. The walls of his trailer were paper-thin, but better than the dangerously exposed position of the porch. There were actually gunshots, and they came from all sides of the property, the same way the Bushes used to shoot at them on the bad nights. The small town was fervently patriotic, and besides their Veterans Memorial in the square that consisted of a hokey, carved wooden Statue of Liberty, the townsfolk celebrated their independence with real guns and big bonfires. The low glow of fires in the distance, through the trees, reminded Bill of those who used to camp just outside the walls of his base, taunting his company, letting them know that they were always there and in large numbers. Or were they? Bill refused to yield and stood his ground on the porch, declining every plea from his family to join them in the celebrations. He patiently waited. The night grew longer while the fuses grew shorter. He was insistent on serving, as he always had, this time as a grandfather. Through the flashbangs and flashbacks, he watched the whole show. With every "Thanks for your service, Popi," he responded with a hand wave and grunted, "You're welcome." He was in pain, but he didn't want anyone to know. Through that pain, he committed to making the kids happy. He had to make that sacrifice for them. It was his duty. When the grand finale ended and the neighbors ran out of ammo, all that was left for Bill to hear was the excitement of his family and the applause of the crickets. He was thankful the celebration was over, and after confirming that he was relieved of his duties, he walked back inside, grateful that he was brave enough to fight another battle, proud that he didn't have to call his oldest ally, Jim Beam, for help. The grandkids and sons cleaned up before going back inside.
I hope the celebration made Poppy happy. We planned all day and I'm so tired now,
said the youngest to the next youngest.
I'm sure it did,
she replied enthusiastically. I hope these kids appreciate all the sacrifices I've made for them. I'm so tired now, he thought, recovering in his room. At that moment, among the rolling hills and roaring crickets of the tiny, simple town, they didn't appreciate his sacrifice that night. They couldn't. They didn't even know about it. But that didn't matter because one day they learned about all his hopes and dreams and sacrifices and failures. Once they knew, there was no reason to ever worry if they appreciated the sacrifices Bill made, because in the end, they did. The photo I chose for today shows Popi sitting in his helicopter, doing something with ammo. It's a pretty cool photo. I'm Alex Lowy, and I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode of Dearest Suzie and receiving messages from the past that my Popi wrote exactly 60 years ago. I sincerely appreciate your time and interest. Please consider following the podcast on your preferred platform, and if you're enjoying it, I kindly ask that you take the time to rate the show and leave a review. Also, please follow the project on YouTube, X, and Instagram. All likes, comments, shares, and reviews will help grow the reach of this story. The links for these things should be in the description of this episode. Please feel free to email me at dearestsuziepodcast@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like to say. I'd love to chat or to hear about your stories as well. Thank you for listening, and God bless.